Our political system is bankrolled by an army of fundraisers pulling in millions of dollars a race. Sometimes it looks like you might imagine. Knocking on doors, calling every name in the phone book, and emails. So many emails. But for all those little fish throwing $100 to their local race, it's the whales that. And those campaign fundraisers really need powerful, rich individuals and companies. And when they donate $25,000, $100,000, $1 million, they want a favor or 10. It should be obvious that that's corrupt, but with a wink and a nod, political deals toe the bribery line every single day. And we may never have noticed that if a certain Illinois governor hadn't flung back the curtain with an unrepentant ego, a political corruption crime spree, and a set of unprecedented audio recordings that shined a bright light on the inner workings of American political power. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Rod Blagojevich. So, Governor, thanks for doing this. Thank you. Let's talk about the Chicago and Illinois system, because you're hardly the first governor in history, even in recent history, to go to prison. What's the situation here that causes this to happen? Well, I think it's time-honored here, and there's a long history in Chicago politics, Illinois politics, where pretty much everybody gets rich. Illinois is steeped in a rich history of political corruption that dates back a century to the Prohibition era, when bootlegging gangsters such as Al Capone bought off politicians and police departments, keeping them drunk on power, and also just drunk. In Rod's lifetime, Illinois has developed a rap sheet that any mobster would be proud of. More than 1,700 convictions for corruption, including nearly 30 Chicago aldermen, 8 state legislators, 2 U.S. congressmen, and before Rod came onto the scene, 3 governors. In an odd way, the very people who should hate the idea of corruption are kind of proud that this is Al Capone's Illinois. Chicago is a wink and a nod town. It's a shot and a beer town. A lot of it has to do with family relationships because a lot of the political leadership in Chicago and Illinois are family-related. There's the Daley family, Madigans. All of these families sort of become part of this mafia, a political mafia. And they're the ones who make the rules. I didn't come from that. I had to marry into it. I don't think it was, some great surprise that when it comes time to meet the parents, that Dick Mell was the father-in-law and the powerful city council chieftain. Dick Mell was a guy who always had a voice in the back rooms. He was a power broker in that kind of Chicago classic sense. Before politics, it was a nice relationship, but for the most part, respectful. He really became known as Dick Mell's son-in-law first, and I know he hated that. He didn't know how to both be his own man and not let Dick Mell overshadow him. The only way for Rod to survive outside of his father-in-law's machine was to create his own cash flow. So his first step was to hire 2 of Chicago's most bare-knuckle political fundraisers, Chris Kelly and Tony Resco. Chris Kelly and Tony Resco could generate big bucks. They were fundraisers. They were donors. Let's just call them what they were. They were influence peddlers. They wound up being able to shake the bushes here and help Rod raise money. They promised access and favors if Blagojevich won, and they got results. Where Dick Mell's good old boys would fetch $2,000 at a time, Kelly and Resca would shake loose 50 grand. Well, it proved to be an unstoppable combination. He ran on some things that were uniquely important to black people. Healthcare for kids is a good idea. When he said free rides for seniors on public transportation, that resonated with black people specifically. Blagojevich became governor in 2003. Congratulations, Governor. May God bless you. Thank you. How do you view your time as governor apart from the scandals? How do I say this in a way where I don't sound like a guy without any humility? But I truly believe I was a great governor. I can't think of any governor in my life that did anything for anybody I knew. That can walk around and say, you know what? Thank you, Governor. My daughter had health care through you. Free public transportation for seniors and the disabled. I did that because they raised the sales tax, which hurts working people and poor people and seniors. I knew the reality that I'm going to have resistance from the old guard, the old ward bosses, the Madigans, Daley to some extent, my father-in-law. And so the goal was raise money now and raise a lot of it so that you can afford to make enemies, and you can afford to lose support. Right, but some of these people that you were relying on, like Chris Kelly, were corrupt, right? It turned out that Chris had problems in his own personal business, and he was found guilty of those things. It had nothing to do with me. But like a lot of the people in the world of fundraising are not necessarily. They are not upstanding individuals. No, they're not. Yeah. No, they're not. What's the saying? Ignorance is not a defense. Tony Resco and Chris Kelly started compiling this list of different entities that were state contractors and hit all of those people up for money, probably with Rod's assistance. Hey, you got a contract? You want to keep it? Or you want to get more? You got to pony up. A lot of people in play have scalpel-like tendencies when they fundraise, and Rod was probably more of a meat cleaver. Kelly and Resca were using government levers to squeeze anyone they could for a campaign contribution. Kickbacks like a cushy job or a fat contract. A little light extortion such as holding up teachers' funds. They had deep pockets to fill and a financial machine to do it. You can't trade official actions as a governor in exchange for campaign contributions or jobs. To state the obvious, appointing unqualified people to state positions because you want to use the government as a vending machine for your political campaign, that's completely illegal. The email was to make money from every state petitioner possible, and small-town hospital CEO Pam Davis looked like just another easy mark. In this case, the whole shakedown process is recorded by the hospital executive who is getting shaken down. Oh God, another wire. I don't care. The governor really wasn't on my radar at all until I experienced an extortion attempt through one of his colleagues. Pam's hospital system wanted to build a new facility in Plainfield, Illinois. Seems pretty straightforward, but there were red flags right away when she went to get government approval for the project. In my case, the governor had appointed individuals to this board who had either contributed money to his campaign, so they bought their way on, or individuals that were controlled by the governor and other individuals and would approve only those projects where a kickback was going to be given. Turns out the board was willing to approve the hospital. All she had to do was use builders and lenders who were in their pocket and pad the contract so the board could take, let's call it a transaction fee for their trouble. It became clear to me that this was a major extortion attempt, and I was furious. So I called the FBI. The Fed set her up with a wire so they could listen in on her meetings with board members and get the dirt straight from the source. She'd be meeting with these players, and they would be basically laying out the whole scheme to her. The contract would be padded by roughly $10 million so that money would go then to the various players. At one point, I decided, I wonder if this goes up to the governor, because the governor appoints these individuals to the various boards. The feds were wondering the same thing. And over the course of their investigation, their suspicions proved to be spot on.